Neil had been wandering around Wacky's Wonders for quite some time now, trying to find his mother, whom he had lost. He went from room to room, hallway to hallway, scanning the area and calling for his mother. He decided that he would have to resort to asking for help from another person or a cast member. After a few more minutes of frantic searching, he stumbled into a room, upon a clown, seemingly skulking through the area. His hair was bright purple, almost magenta, a red dotted nose and bright yellow eyes, a large toothy grin. This clown was sporting a sign hanging from his neck. "Free Hugz," it read in sloppy red letters. The clown turned his attention to Neil upon hearing the approaching footsteps.
"Hey, kid, why the long face? Looks like you could use a hug,"
he excitedly said. No, I'm just looking for my mom. I got lost a while ago and I haven't seen her in almost an hour. The clown's eyes eerily widened. Neil couldn't tell if it was from shock or excitement, but it was quite off-putting. Yeah, so anyway, she has long brown hair, brown eyes, she's like 5'5". She was wearing an OSU sweater, blue jeans. Have you seen her? Neil asked the clown.
"Yes, she's at the party,"
he said as his smile grew bigger and his eyes seemingly grew brighter. Party? Why would she be at a party?
"To have fun, of course. Free cake, free gifts, and free hugs. I can take you there if you want."
Neil was starting to feel sick to his stomach all of a sudden. Something about the things this clown was saying, the way he was saying it. His gut told him not to listen. No thanks, I just need to find my mom is all, but thanks anyway, he said as he turned to walk away.
"Oh, not even one free hug?"
No thanks, Neil said disapprovingly.
"Oh, well, you'd like to see your mom one last time, wouldn't you?"
What? Neil whipped around.
"She's been looking for you, Neil. She's told me all about how she wants you to be safe, and for me, not to hurt you. She wanted to find you, so I went looking for you, for her."
The clown excitedly laughed. Neil had trouble trying to process what he had just been told. But before he knew it, the clown had begun to walk towards him, taking long strides as he walked. Neil tried to bolt out of the clown's way and curve around him, but the clown was quicker.
"Come here!"
the clown shouted as he wrapped his arms around Neil. Neil tried to kick and scream and wiggle his way out of the clown's arms. It seemed as if this clown had super strength. The clown started to tighten his grip, making it hard for Neil to breathe. Neil could feel his breathing slow and see his vision fading. Hyperventilation and panic was causing him to go out quickly.
"Shh, settle down. Don't make it harder on yourself,"
the clown said. Neil was passing out at this point. He didn't have the energy to keep screaming or fighting. All he could do was hear the clown giggling to himself until everything faded to black. Neil started to wake up. Everything felt stiff, and it was still hard to breathe. He heard muffled crying and whimpering. When his vision started to come back, he began to scan his surroundings. Sure enough, he was in some sort of party room. Wacky's Wonders paper plates lined the tables. Party decor was strung about the room. A sloppily made birthday cake sat at the end of the table with lighted candles. Most notably, a woman sitting across the table from him, her head sloppily wrapped in layers of wrapping paper. Neil knew it was his mother. He had tried getting up from his seat to get to her, but he quickly realized he had been tied to the chair. He tried to call out her name, but he couldn't open his mouth. His mouth was covered with duct tape. All he could do was struggle. Behind his mother, he could make out a figure in the dark. The silhouette of the clown from earlier, now wearing a pointy party hat. He stepped further into the light.
"This is gonna be the best day ever, Neil,"
he exclaimed.
"Look, I even got you a present,"
he said as he rested his pointy fingers over his mother's shoulders. Neil started to squirm harder and cry profusely.
"Aren't you excited?"
Neil tried to yell, but there was no use.
"I even brought a friend."
Just then, another clown walked down from the darkness, sporting a green and blue polka-dotted jumpsuit, orange ruffles and buttons. He had scars all over his face, missing teeth, and spiraling eyes, Neil thought to himself. But before he could get a good look into the eyes of the clown, the other one rushed over to Neil's side and put his hands over Neil's eyes.
"No peeking, you'll ruin the surprise."
The purple-haired clown giggled.
"Ready, Hugz?"
the other clown said in a goofy-sounding voice.
"Go for it."
Hugz giggled. Hugz uncovered Neil's eyes. He was face to face with the swirly-eyed clown.
"Hey, Neil, don't you want to open your present?"
the clown said. Neil turned his head and shut his eyes, knowing whatever he was hypnotizing him for was bound to be bad.
"You can't do that, cheater!"
Hugz yelled. Hugz grabbed Neil's head and forced it back into its previous position, then proceeded to grab his eyelids and pull them open.
"There you are. Perhaps now would be a good time to unwrap your gift, wouldn't you say?"
the goofy clown yelled excitedly. Neil could feel that he was beginning to lose control of his own body. He was starting to move various muscles, despite not being him actually controlling them. He began to slip out of consciousness, fading in and out as he did earlier when he was being smothered. Neil's vision went black once more. Hugz began to untie him from the chair and remove the duct tape from his mouth. All the while, the swirly-eyed clown was still at eye level with Neil, who, despite being unconscious, his eyes were still open.
"Good. All you need to do is walk around the table. We wrapped your present pretty tightly. You may have to dig in with your nails to really get the paper off."
Neil began to walk over to his mother. The two clowns giggled as they watched him mindlessly wander over to his own mother and place his hands over her wrapped head.
"Good. Now, like I said, we wrapped it a bit too tight. I'd recommend really sinking your fingers in there and tear it as hard as you can,"
he yelled. Neil began clawing and grasping at the wrapping paper and his mother's flesh. Not being conscious, Neil began clawing hard. His mother started screaming as he tore the wrapping paper off, as well as chunks of hair and flesh. Not only was Neil tearing away flesh and hair like a bear, the wrapping paper wasn't even wrapping paper. It was thick and very hard to tear off. The clowns had stuck layers of flypaper to her face with very heavy adhesive. The more Neil would tear off, the more hair would come with it, leaving rashes and sometimes taking skin with it. His mother kept screaming. The clowns were laughing. Finally, Neil had got past all the paper and was now just clawing at his mother's bare skin.
"All right, you've had enough fun, kid,"
the swirly-eyed clown said. With that, Neil ceased what he was doing and started to regain his own consciousness. Before Neil could fully understand what was happening, Hugz made sure to pick Neil up and put him back in his chair, tying him up and duct taping his mouth shut once more. Neil was starting to come back to reality. He saw what he had done, his mother on the floor crying and whimpering. She was suffering, and by the looks of the damage done, didn't have much time to live. Neil was still crying. However, by this point, it was hard for him to make any noise. Neil's mother began to cry louder as he thought to himself.
"Quit crying. You already had your free hugs."
Hugz giggled as he walked up to her and gave her one long scratch across her back with his index finger.
"Oh, boo-hoo,"
the green clown said mockingly.
"If you can't stop, then I'm going to have to stop it for you,"
he said as his eyes started to swirl faster with frustration. She started to scream even louder.
"Fine, I'll do it myself then."
Neil started to scream under the duct tape. He knew what was coming next. They were going to make him watch his own mother die. The swirly-eyed clown stepped back into the darkness for a few seconds. When he came back, Neil could see him holding an object behind his back with one hand and a bottle of liquor in the other.
"Hugz, help me out, will ya?"
he said annoyingly. Hugz came over to the woman. He grabbed her hair with one of his hands and held her up.
"Don't worry, it'll be over soon. You're not worth our time,"
Hugz said with animosity in his voice. The swirly-eyed clown revealed what he was holding in his other hand. It was a butterfly knife.
"I could have used my gun, but this should be more fun." "Hey, that rhymed!"
he exclaimed. Hugz began laughing as well.
"Go ahead, Swirls,"
Hugz said. Swirls brandished his knife for a couple seconds, and then plunged it into the side of the woman's neck. Neil could hear his mother choking on her own blood. Swirls took the knife out of her neck. As he walked away, Hugz, still holding her by the hair, threw her head against the wall with force. Her lifeless body slumped to the floor, bleeding out.
"Hugz, I got an idea. Let's autograph our nicknames on the kid,"
Swirls said ecstatically. They both began to laugh. Neil was trying to break free from his ropes, but it was no use. Swirls took out his blade once more. He took the tip of the knife to Neil's exposed arm and began to carve "Swirls" in capital letters into his flesh.
"My turn,"
Hugz said as he rushed over and stole the knife from Swirls. Hugz began to carve his own name into Neil's other arm. Unlike Swirls, however, Hugz took his time, looking into Neil's crying eyes as he did so. As Hugz was doing his thing, Swirls walked back over to the birthday cake and grabbed a couple of the lit candles, carefully bringing them back, making sure they didn't go out. Neil was frantically looking around the room while Hugz was still carving. He looked at the birthday cake, the plates, Hugz, to his mom's corpse. But then he turned his attention to the right side of the room. He hadn't really paid any attention there at all yet. He focused his attention on a small object in the corner of the room, around 3 feet in height. Through his tears, he could make out a small, red, blinking light on the object. It was pointed in his direction. Is that, Neil couldn't even finish his thought before Swirls interrupted.
Oh, you finally noticed.
Swirls cackled.
You're gonna make us some real good money, kid.
He still had his bottle of liquor in hand. He raised it up into the air and took one last swig. Hugz stood back up and backed away. Swirls put the bottle back down to his side after audibly gulping his liquor down.
Here, try some.
Swirls shouted. He took the rest of the liquor from the bottle and dumped it all over Neil's body. He could feel the liquid seep into the fresh carvings Hugz and Swirls had just made on his arms, and it burned.
You do the honors, Hugz,
said Swirls as he handed the lit birthday candle off to Hugz.
With pleasure,
Hugz exclaimed.
Oh, and Neil, say hi to your mother for us again, okay?
Swirls said with a smile on his face. Hugz began to laugh. He tossed the lit candle onto Neil's liquor-soaked body. A burst of flames and screams. All the while, the 2 clowns laughed at what they had done, as if it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. The party room wasn't a place for others to have fun. They never intended it to. It was only ever a party for themselves. They considered this their best work yet. It truly was the best day ever for them.